And it's deja vu for the U.S. as President Barack Obama not only approves airstrikes in Iraq, but just hours later made good on that promise. Early Friday morning, U.S. fighter jets dropped 500-pound bombs in the northern Iraqi region of Erbil to protect American personnel in the region and push back ISIS militants from the Kurdish regions, where there is a large Christian community. These are the first airstrikes in Iraq since Obama pulled out all U.S. troops back in 2011. But as the Sunni fighters have advanced on the region, seizing Mosul in June and the country's largest dam yesterday, President Obama has had to change his tune. Take a look at how the tune has changed since 2011.
We're leaving behind a sovereign, stable, and self-reliant Iraq.
The United States will not pursue military options that support one sect inside of Iraq at the expense of another. There's no military solution inside of Iraq, certainly not one that is led by the United States.
I think it's fair to say that their extreme ideology poses a medium and long-term threat. There are a lot of groups out there that probably have more advanced, immediate plans directed against the United States that we have to be on constant guard for.
I've directed our military to take targeted strikes against ISIL terrorist convoys should they move toward the city. We intend to stay vigilant and take action if these terrorist forces threaten our personnel or facilities anywhere in Iraq.
Now, the Obama administration has said it will keep the offensive limited to airstrikes with no immediate plans for boots on the ground at this point. However, ISIS tells Vice Media that the U.S. is cowardly if it doesn't put troops on the ground. And in this still image from Vice News, an ISIS spokesman says the fighters will raise their flag at the White House. And yesterday's announcement of the strikes came after the U.S. dropped relief supplies to tens of thousands of Yazidi people who are sheltering from ISIS on a mountaintop in northern Iraq. So, from humanitarian airdrops to airstrikes, the U.S. is seeing a major turn in the presence in Iraq. Earlier, I was joined by retired Brigadier General David Reist. He's also the Vice President of Strategy and Planning at the Potomac Institute. I first asked him what he thought the goals of the airstrikes were.
I don't think we're going to push them out of Iraq, but I think the airstrikes have three purposes, really. First of all, it's to push ISIS back on their heels. Second, it's to support the Kurds. And I think third, it's to allow us to hopefully put a little bit of a divide between the Sunni tribes and ISIS.
And now, the strikes today, doesn't that just return the U.S. to direct combat? And for the first time since the U.S. withdrew back in 2011, do you feel that we had any other options?
We've got other options, and we're executing them probably. They are just not making the news. But the airstrikes really are the perfect answer at this point in time, because what ISIS has done is, by holding ground, by having tanks, by being out in the open, it allows us to target them. And in the past, groups like ISIS have worked underground. They've been able to go back into the neighborhoods at night. Now they're out in the open. So from a military perspective, we can use kinetic action against a target that we can see and hit. This is going to be very visible.
And back in June, as you recall, we saw the U.S. send about 300 more troops into the region to help secure our personnel and the embassies there. They were already there. Now, the airstrikes are in an effort, at least, like you mentioned, to protect the now, I'm hearing 800 American troops who are there. The U.S. is saying that we won't put boots on the ground, whether planned or unplanned. The sequence of events feels like an escalation. Does it look that way to you?
Well, I think what's happening right now is we're looking at courses of action based on the actions that are happening on the ground at this time. To speculate what's going to happen in advance, this is going to be a chess match back and forth. This is the essence of maneuver warfare, and this is what's going on. The enemy makes a move, you make a counter move. The beauty of this, though, as I said before, is ISIS has brought themselves out in the open, and we can hit them at this point in time. And this is exactly what especially air power, is very effective and efficient at doing.
Well, in your opinion, what do you think? Do you think that the situation could develop to the point that we will have boots on the ground and this will escalate?
It always could, but let's see what happens with the airstrikes. Let's see how ISIS responds. And once again, looking at this like a chess match, this is going to be a very visible signal. Now, there's one thing about airstrikes. The precise nature of them is important here because ISIS is showing that they're very adept at the social media game. And what they're going to do is, if something happens and goes a little bit off kilter, they will exploit that. This is going to be a fascinating counterpoint to watch and observe and see how both sides react on this.
Gotcha. Now let's have a quick look at how President Obama described ISIS back in January. In an interview with the New Yorker's David Remnick, he said, this is the following. He wrote, "The analogy we used around here sometimes, and I think is accurate, is if a JV team puts on Lakers uniforms, that doesn't make them Kobe Bryant." Now, do you think President Obama underestimated the power of ISIS?
No, not at all. I've talked to some Iraqi friends. ISIS is a loosely knit group. They've got some support. They are extorting money. They are stealing money. They've gained some momentum, but that momentum has come as a result of some press coverage, probably here in the U.S. I think we're not giving enough credit to what the tribes are doing, the Sunni tribes. And we've got to remember, this relationship right now between the Sunni tribes and ISIS is one that Maliki has pushed the Sunni tribes into a corner where they had to make a deal with the devil. When there's some space created and where there's some political, maybe acknowledgement of some Sunni concerns, this will push ISIS away from those tribes. Couple that with the airstrikes, that's the sort of things we want to watch at this point in time. And I think the president had it right. These guys, they were just, they were around, they saw an opportunity, they attracted other people who wanted to fight, some foreign fighters, maybe 10, 15%, who knows what that percentage is, but giving them a good swift punch in the nose, we'll see what that does.
Now, General, you mentioned something about funding there just a second ago. From the different cities and towns that ISIS has captured, and they've taken over some of the tanks and some of the equipment that the Iraqi forces left behind. Are you hearing anything about them taking those and selling them on the black market?
I haven't heard that. I can't comment on that, sorry.
Okay, and so if the U.S. bombed ISIS when Iraq asked for the assistance about a month or so ago, would it have helped to avoid a humanitarian crisis?
Hard to speculate looking back. I think the time's got to be right for the United States to engage and how to engage. We're on the political world stage as a leader, but we've got to watch how we influence and how we lead with the power we possess. So, the president, through his advisors, through General Austin down at U.S. Central Command, is taking the actions that are warranted at the time that those actions are taken. Now seem to be the time, with the advice the president's getting, to engage. We just got to see how this one plays out, not on the what-ifs of what we would have done 30 days ago, 60 days ago. It's hard.
Now, General, ISIS has also gained a lot of ground outside, beyond the Iraqi borders, well into Syria. Will we draw the lines of U.S. involvement at the Iraqi border, or could we potentially see U.S. or perhaps NATO airstrikes into Syria as well?
I think the president will take the countries, what's involved, meld this all together and look at a holistic response to deal with ISIS. ISIS has the flexibility that the borders don't mean anything to them, and they can gain some refuge in some other countries. So this will all be taken in, will be put in the hopper, and the best course of action on how to cut them off at the knees will be dealt with, hopefully.
All right, thank you so much for your insight. That was retired Brigadier General David Reese. He's also the Vice President of Strategy and Planning at the Potomac Institute. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.